I'm living a life. I'm thinking about the slideshow at my funeral and what pictures are going to be there.
Don't move. Keep it locked. You already know. You're listening to the Forfeit Fatherhood Podcast. And we're having conversations with dope dads covering the 4 pillars of fatherhood. We call it the Fit Fatherhood Formula. Faith, family, finance, and fitness. That's right. These dads are setting the pace in business and fatherhood. This show isn't only about the outside success. We're getting down to who you are. Gentlemen, it's time to get fit. And now, let's get into the show.
And as I think about it, I'll relate it to how I had to approach my church journey. And that is with an open heart and open mind. So I had to go in these places that I was different. They were different from me, and it was a different religion. And I just had to be receptive to what I might see, hear, and find. And so I think when we talk about bringing that into our families, I think that's kind of a similar perspective we need to have as fathers. Many times, and I know myself included, that I had very rigid ideas about the way things should be. After all, I was the man of the house and I'm the father, and they're kids and they're supposed to obey. And too often, I didn't have an open heart. Well, hopefully I was always open-hearted, but certainly didn't have an open mind. And it all goes back to this concept we always talk about of listening. How well do we listen to our children? And I know there were many times I did not listen sufficiently or did not have a sufficient open mind. So I think if you want to bring a sense of belonging into the family and community into the family, that you need to bring a great level of receptivity. Now, of course, you have to stick to your value system and your morals. Just because you're okay with listening to someone or hearing someone out doesn't mean you're going to agree with them and adopt what they have. But I find that we need to have a receptivity. So the open heart, open mind towards our own families is a way we can bring community back into our own family.
When your mind is open, your heart is open, it allows them to enter freely, right? Like your family kind of gets to be in that space without the barriers maybe or to set parameters, because dad's only going to love me or only going to care about me and if I'm this way only, right?
That's very astute. That's a great observation, is that we unintentionally put that on our children, or maybe sometimes intentionally I did, but that, hey, this is the standard and I know it. I know what it should be. And we don't allow our children some freedom that they need in order to develop and maybe to understand. Sometimes you got to touch the hot plate.
Yeah.
Learn your lesson.
Yeah. It's funny. I say that all the time because my wife and I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. And sometimes I'm like, sometimes we just got to let them fall on their face. Like we got to let them fail. Because I don't know how many times you have to be told that the fire is hot, but however many times, none of them compare to touching the fire, right? Because as soon as you touch it, you know immediately that it's not to be touched. But someone can tell you 100 times and you'll keep playing with the fire until you actually get burned and then you finally understand it. So I'm like, sometimes we just got to let them fail, safely, obviously. Like we don't want them to fail in a way that's going to harm them indefinitely, but we do want them to learn. And I think sometimes that closes the gap. Sometimes there's an event that happens or a loss or a failure that they come across that closes the gap of understanding that faster than we can by giving them our knowledge, right?
Oh, I think that's absolutely correct. And let's take it a step further, is that we're also dads and our word is law, and we want to convey to our children that we are perfect and we do no wrong. And the reality is we need to be open-minded and open-hearted enough to tell them also, look, hey, there's times we've been wrong in our lives. So we know we've learned some of these lessons because we have been wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. Not only it's apparently okay because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're going to be wrong sometimes. And that includes when you're a child, and it includes when you're a parent, and it includes when you're a grandparent, that sometimes you're going to be wrong. And we need to let our kids know that, yeah, hey, sometimes we are wrong without undermining our authority.
Right.
Just giving them out. Well, you could be wrong on this, Dad. And so, well, yeah, I could be wrong, but this is also the authority I have.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Even saying that, I could be wrong, gives a little bit of, it's possible, right? Raising a child or raising a son to, become a man, that almost human answer is like, yeah, I could be wrong, right? But this, based on the set of the skills that I have, the knowledge that I have, this is the way we're going to do things, and I could be wrong, and that's okay, right? Because if I am wrong, then I'll learn through my error what is the right way to do it, and showing kids that, or at least allowing them to understand that that is a real way to go about things, makes it not so difficult to navigate life. I'm seeing this with my oldest daughter. She's not a perfectionist, but she is a little bit, right? Like she wants to do everything right. She understands that, there's some times where she's not going to be right, but she hates it. Like if she gets something wrong or if she does it, oh man, it's like the worst thing in the world. So like I'm trying to help her understand, like, yes, sometimes you're going to do everything right and it's still not going to go your way. And that's okay.
Right. The results. You can only control so that's another lesson. You can only control your inputs, and you're not going to be able to control the outputs always. But I think the other thing you teach when you did this, when I was listening to you, I think one of the things you otherwise taught is the need to make a decision and the importance of making a decision. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I might be wrong and the fact that I don't have perfect judgment or wisdom won't stop me from making a decision, because at some point a decision is required. And so I'm going to have to make a decision with the knowledge that it may be wrong. But what would be even worse is not to make a decision and flounder indefinitely. So that's another point you just made in that discussion.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's really important. I wasn't even leaning into that, but I'm glad you picked that up. Is that I think that's really important because you have to make a decision with some level of conviction, and you have to follow through with it, and then deal with the repercussions. Maybe it works. Maybe you were right, and now you got whatever positive outcome that you wanted, and maybe you were wrong. And now we do the work. Right now we figure out how we navigate whatever results came out of it that maybe we didn't want. How do we adjust the next time we need to make this decision? I think those are very valuable lessons that we have to actively teach our children. Right. I think, and this is why I said, like, I had two dads but I felt like I learned from observing, right? Like you say, you're a curious observer. I've never given it a title, but I definitely love to watch, right? And I definitely pay attention, and I learned things through seeing them, but I wasn't exactly told how to do things, right? And that's just not their style. Even now, right? Even now, they just aren't going to share a whole lot of information. And so I'm just learning through observation. But with my daughters, I know that sometimes they're going to be learning through observation, but whenever I'm aware of it, I want to also tell them this is what's happening, right? Kind of give them an idea of my thought process, how I process the situation to get to where we are. Because I know that for them, hopefully allows them the same processes to make those decisions when it's their turn.
Right. No, it's that mixture of guidance, example, and guidance. And in faith, I think it was Saint Francis who said this, but I may be misattributing, is that preach the gospel constantly, use words only when necessary.
I like that.
And so, and there's but now obviously our children need a little bit more instruction. They need a little more classroom instruction, but what we can't do, and I think that this is what you're saying for sure, or you would say this, is that we can't say one thing and do another.
Right.
That's fatal. You absolutely cannot say one thing and do another, with your children. And then I'm going to jump in here with an old man's perspective. Now that I'm a grandfather, and I would say I'm mostly retired, and a lot of my friends are retired. And there's seasons in life. And in our younger seasons, we spend a lot of time on our professional endeavor. We're very dedicated to our careers, very dedicated to our jobs, and you can't do everything. And so sometimes, yes, there's a sacrifice to your family. And it's unavoidable. You want to think about that, though, and you want to minimize it. You want to compensate for it the best you can. But one thing I would plant a seed in a younger person's mind is that at the end of the day, and comes very soon after you quit working, all that professional stuff goes away. I mean, my life was making frozen entrees. I thought there was nothing else to my life besides making frozen entrees. 10 years later, I almost have forgotten about frozen entrees. I rarely even mention frozen entrees anymore. And it captivated my life. I mean, we had a big business, 150 employees, had 2 facilities. I mean, it was on my mind constantly. I've had 2 friends who just recently retired. Both, they were CEOs. They built publicly traded companies. They were both CEOs of their publicly traded companies. Boom, they retire. And it's surprising in how short order that is behind them. They don't talk about it anymore. And yes, they were the CEO of this and they were the CEO of that. And I can give you the ticker symbol. And that's gone. Actually, I've got 3 friends. Now I just thought of another one as we were talking. And yeah, that was all great. And yeah, we did, and I did that and we did that and what have you. But we don't talk about that anymore. And I was not a CEO of a publicly traded company, but you don't hear me talk about frozen entrees a lot. So what you find, so that's why I want to plant the seed, is that when you're in your 40s, it's all encompassing your career and you think that's all there ever will be. And then not only will there be another day, hopefully, Lord willing, but when that day comes, it's going to fade very quickly. All those accomplishments, all those achievements, ringing the bell in the New York Stock Exchange, all going to fade so fast. It's not even going to be funny. Then what becomes important is what you see behind me. You see all these, you don't see any awards up there. You don't see my bank statements up there. What you do is you see pictures of treasured family and friends. And so now what I say is, and I don't want to and this is not far from fatherhood, is that I'm living a life, I'm thinking about the slideshow at my funeral and what pictures are going to be there. And there won't be any frozen entrees. There won't be any legal gavels. There won't be any CPA, green eye shade. There won't be any of that. It's going to be pictures of things I did with my family and friends.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that's really important to hear, especially the guys that are like in the thick of it, right? Like if you're younger children, when we first start having kids, we're kind of in that stage of our life where we're trying to build, right? We're trying to build our business, or we're trying to build our company, or we're just trying to work up the ladder or whatever. And so we put a lot of attention and focus on that. It's interesting that it always seems to happen right around the same time we have kids. I think that's just based on chronological order. And so we're like, I hear guys say this all the time is, I'm gonna work hard now while they're young so that when they're older, I have time to be with them. And it always sounds good, but it doesn't always work that way, right? Like, cause you get into these modes, and I did it myself. I felt the same way. I got into a mode where I was grinding and building a business that wasn't even mine, but building a business. And we got to a certain level. And then, without COVID, I probably would have never noticed that I wasn't around the way I wanted to be around. I was just in a grind mode, just building, looking to the future, looking to this thing and that thing. And behind me, my family was growing up without me. And I think it's really important that you point out, like at the end of it all, we're not going to care about how many athletes I trained. We're not going to care about, who's who of people that I've worked with, the gyms that I've run. It's going to be the pictures of your family, the vacations, or just the silly stuff, the birthdays, like the little things that are going to be the real memories and the things that are actually most important. But we lose sight of that early, right? Like we miss the forest because of the trees kind of idea, because we're so caught up in, I think, what everybody tells us is the most important aspect of a father, which is provision. So I want to ask you, what do you think a father owes his family beyond provision?
Yeah. And now, at the risk of being a hypocrite, because I was in that stage where I was all in on my business and I didn't spend enough time, but I really, I'm going to give myself some grace. I think my kids will give me some grace also, is that we owe our kids a lot more than new Nikes and Apple iPads.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we only have to look back on our own childhood. And you're going to remember the days that you went fishing with your dad or played ball with your dad. And it's unlikely you're going to remember that, the day he gave you an iPad, if he gave you an iPad, or, whatever that prized little possession was. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
the time we spent. So I think first thing is we look back on the experiences that formed us and touched us. And go a step beyond your parents. What do your grandparents? Your grandparents, you probably love your grandparents. They probably never gave you anything much of monetary value, but you remember the time you sat on your grandfather's knee and he told you stories, or
Mm-hmm.
the sandwich your grandmother made you when you came inside from playing, and she did it with such loving care. So if we think about that, then we think about what kind of provision. Now, look, it's important. So, you train people, and, there's a certain level of dedication you need in order if you really want to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to decide what level you're going to go, and maybe accept that you're not going to make it to the top because you're not going to put in the time to do it. And I'm not going to put in the time and effort to do it. And I've really come to that stage in my life now, a little bit because of my age, is that, there's things, hey, I want the wandering worshiper to be a household name. Are you willing to work 60 hours a week doing it? No, I'm not. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to have to settle for whatever that result may be, or settle with it, whatever results come with that amount of effort. And guess what? It's okay, because I'm going to go see Little Ricky in Chicago this weekend, and my grandson. And so that's what I want to do. And I'm going to take time off to do that. And I love to travel. I'm going to take time off to do that. What's important. But I think you'll never regret spending time with your family. You'll never look back and say, "Oh, I spent too much time with my family. I would have been more successful at work." You ever hear anyone say that on their deathbed?
No.
Oh, God, if I had not spent all that time coaching my kids' little league, I would have made a lot more money. I
Yeah.
never
No.
hear that. And it's hard when you're in the thick of it. I write this in my blog, in one of my blogs. The most I say is, maybe I'm just planting a little bit of a seed in someone in their 40s who's really hitting it very hard,
Mm-hmm.
and say, oh, I know there's a day this won't be as important. And how will that impact what I do today? So maybe I have more time to enjoy my children and grandchildren now, but hopefully I planted the seeds when they were younger, that they would want to have that relationship with me today. And
Yeah.
so, and fortunately I have. And so that's really what maybe the best you can do when you're hitting it hard in your 40s.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
got that mortgage and you got that car payment, and, and the kids need new shoes, the feet keep growing. And all. And so I appreciate that, and I understand that, but I think we got to just, again, at the end of the day, this will be what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's kind of a balancing act to some degree, right? Like there's maybe even talk about like scales, right? Like you're trying to kind of find that perfect balance, and I don't think you really do. It's kind of like, some things. Sometimes it's a little bit up, sometimes a little bit down. And you said settle. I think sometimes the words mess us up, right? Like when we say, "Oh, I had to settle for this, I had to settle for that," people sometimes look at that negatively, right? Like you didn't get the result you wanted, but you settled for this, right? I think maybe you looking at it as, I'm satisfied here, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I could build a business that ends up becoming a publicly traded company, but in order to do that, I would have to spend, like you said, maybe 60. It's going to be probably more than that, but let's say
Yeah.
60 hours a week building this business, which means I don't have time for the family that I'm building also at the same time. So then maybe I don't do that, right? Maybe I'm satisfied with just a really good company and that is beloved in my neighborhood, right? Like we service the needs of the people in the community. My mortgage is paid. You know, the bills are paid. We're not living check to check. My kids are taken care of, and I get to coach the team. Matter of fact, my business sponsors the little league team, so my kids gets a hoodie with my my company name on the back of it. Like, and that's beautiful. That's happy. I don't need my company to be the biggest whatever in the world.
Now, let me tell you, and these men that my friends, and I would certainly say they are good fathers and they have good relationships with their kids. We all know that people can have terrible relationships with their kids, and fortunately, they don't fall into that category. But it's a much more difficult balancing act.
Yeah.
When you talk about the scales of justice and the balance scales of balance, I've come up with another metaphor for that. You know, the lava lamps and those bubbles that go bigger and smaller. So that's what happens in life. Hey, sometimes the equipment's going to break down at the plant and you got to be there. And that lava lamp bubble of the business is bigger. But then you have to make sure it goes down to the right size. So it's not always going to be like this. You're right. You say sometimes they shift around. So I go, it's like the bubbles in a lava lamp. And that's how your priorities just morph around. Look, you're going to get the call. Your mom's in the hospital. You're going to drop everything and go there.
Yeah.
Even if you're very busy at work.
I like that visual too, because it's kind of always moving, right? It's kind of constantly flowing. It's not one of those situations. I think sometimes we think, oh, I'm gonna get the business to this point and then, right? So it's always moving. It's a constantly moving target, and life is happening while you're trying to hit that target. It's like pulling the arrow back, and like you've got water splashing your face, and the wind is blowing, and you're trying to hit a target, and it's probably better to look at it as everything is happening all at once. And it's not maybe about balancing, and it's more about harmony, right? And kind of finding where everything fits into place.
Good word.
Every part is important, right? Like if we talk like a barbershop quartet, right? They sing in harmony. The guy with the bass, like he may not be your lead singer, but he's extremely important, and he's keeping the bass line. And the guy who is maybe the lead, he has a point where he steps in and he goes for a solo, but all of it fits into the whole piece of the quartet, right? Like there's no one part of the quartet that's more important than the other. They all work together in harmony. And I think that's kind of how we have to start looking at it. Is it's not work or versus life. It's just life. Like it's all just life.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's life. They're all going to be there, and they're all going to be working at all different points together. One of the things about we're taught about our businesses, value creation, is to make a lot of money. So there's this great term. Well, I say great in parentheses or quotation marks, generational wealth. And everyone wants to create generational wealth. Well, first of all, that's really lovely. Maybe about, and I was an estate planning attorney, remember, maybe about 1% of the people, not even 1% of the people really create generational wealth. Most people, when they die, they get their parents' bills or they get the junk in the garage, and that's about it. I would contend that there's nothing wrong with getting it, but putting that as a goal, first of all, I don't think we owe our children generational wealth. We don't owe them a life of riches. Number one. Number two, some people would say a demonstration of a little bit of a lack of faith that, hey, there's going to be provision for everybody, and you don't have to be the generational provision of that. Thirdly, I've seen a lot of generational wealth do a lot of harm to people and to kids. And I got some dear friends who that's been a major stumbling block for their children because of this generational wealth. So I don't think I would disavow people of that notion. But now here's one thing I got to do. And I think it was Jared, when he was on your podcast, talked about this, is the importance of a will. And it's just funny, since I'm a former estate planning, when people die, someone calls me up and says, oh, we need some help with the estate. Well, do they have a will? No. And it's like, oh my gosh, this simple little document would save an enormous amount of time and hassle if they just had it. So I would just encourage your fathers, get a simple, basic will. It will save you so much time. You can have elaborate estate plans. I'm not giving any legal advice here. This is just a man about town with my experience. The living trust, I'm not that big of a fan of it. The real big problem is dying without a will. And I can't tell how many people who have children from previous marriages, multiple marriages, and children from previous marriages don't have a will. And then the state decides what your will says. And it's always unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
If I had one little encouragement. And the second thing is generational wealth, and people, I got to get a side hustle and I got to do this, that, and the other thing. And, look on Instagram and it'll tell you how to invest your money. Probably the most important concept is start saving. And then the most important principle is compounding. Let time work for you. And that's the great Warren Buffett will tell you, the greatest investor of all time will tell you that it's compounding, and you'd be surprised what the market will do for you. I think that's another thing. It's thing that's worse today because of social media, of the notions that people are given. And it's so much just the basics that if they would pursue that, they'd be in such great financial shape. If you summed up all the personal financial advice, I'd ask you one question. Are you saving at least 10% of your income? Why that question? Well, if you are, that tells me you're living within your means. If you are, it tells me you don't have any credit card debt. If you are, it tells me either you have it or the ability to have an emergency fund. If you're doing it, it tells me you have the ability to fully fund your retirement accounts. So that one question answers all the others. That's the question I would have every father ask themselves. Because again, we get so elaborate in terms of, oh my gosh, personal finance is so elaborate, and how do we do that? No, do that one thing, and everything else will fall, into place. Again, I'm not a financial planner, not offering financial advice.
Good. Way to throw that. Yeah.
About town and ordering and just offering some guidance, because we get someone asked me, oh, Richard, you might be helpful at the church to teach a class on evaluating alternative investments. I said, I have some knowledge there, but 98% of the people in our church aren't prepared to invest in alternative investments, and they shouldn't even consider it. They got to get their house in order.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. We watch on Instagram, invest in this, and it blew up, and now I'm a bazillionaire. But for 98% of the people, that's just not relevant.
Yeah. I think those are two very simple things that most of us miss because there's a lot of noise out there. But having a will, at the very least, because when you pass, there's already going to be enough stuff going on for whoever's remaining. If you can just cut the state out of it and have things be this person gets this person gets that, and that makes life a lot easier for a grieving family. And then, yes, sure, you could do all these different things in the stock market and make all these investments and have side hustles. And those are all great when you have the bandwidth to do it or the resources to do it. But if you're just starting out, the bare minimum, let's just get this in order. Let's just get a solid foundation of these things first. Before you get into all the bells and whistles and the fancy stuff. And, that might be for you at some point, right? You may build a life that supports that, and you can go and diversify your portfolio and have all these things, but it's hard to start there.
Yeah. No. And look, hey, I certainly have what we call private equity investments, alternative investments. But when Warren Buffett says, hey, my wife, when I die, she's going to have 90% of her money in the S&P 500 index fund and 10% in a corporate bond fund, and that's it, I kind of listen to him.
Yeah.
And you find, most of my investments are in, well-diversified portfolio of index funds, entirely unsexy. I can't post that on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to get famous for that, but I'm going to be just fine.
Yeah. So,
but
go ahead.
No. And so I don't mean to digress too much. And, I know have we talked enough about the pillar of faith? And if I could just add, one thing is that sometimes men have bad experiences carrying some baggage or out of the church, and they have this elaborate notions of what faith is. So I'm going to just say what I tell you my notion of faith is from just a layman is I'd say it is accepting God's love. And when you do that, it transforms you into a lover of all.
Okay.
So accept his love, then you'll be loving. And you know what? I think Jesus summed it up into 2 commandments. And so I think you got 2 of those commandments right there, pretty much sums it up. And then the second thing is, I can't go to church because I don't know that much. I'm actually carrying some sin. And so I don't want to go to church. And I'm afraid of what I might find there. And what I've heard is not good things. So what I would say, number one, don't wash before you take a shower. You don't need to be good to go to church. You don't need to know anything to go to church. You can show up. The doors are always open, and there's going to be people smiling at the front with coffee and donuts. So you can always show up. For those who have been wounded, yes, you have to resolve that. But I would start with saying that there's a virtue in the church community, a huge virtue. And so you may have to work on that wounding and healing. I mean, look, people have been sexually abused in church. They've stolen money in churches. There's some big wounds. And so, but I'll liken it to, you might have had a partner, a romantic partner that cheated on you. That makes it very hard for you to trust anyone and get into another relationship. But you acknowledge that, hey, getting into a loving relationship is really good. So I'm going to work on this wounding so I can make myself receptive to that relationship. So I'd say that's the same thing I'd recommend with respect to the church relationship for those who have been wounded. Look, and you can show up to church and say, look, I'm not ready to love God. Well, you don't need to be ready to love God. In fact, you can go for the wrong reason. Do you ever think alcoholics ever show up to that first meeting saying, this is not for me, I don't belong here, I'm not an alcoholic, I don't need this? Well, friends of mine, 12-step program says, well, that's about 99% of the people, guys, who show up at the first meeting. And so you can even be oppositional, show up oppositional. And then what I say, if the communities are what we say they are and what they should be and what they aspire to be, then they will take you along exactly where you need to be along your spiritual and faith journey.
Yeah. You know what? There's a couple of things that you hit like that are really important to point out. And I think this happens a lot of times in the fitness realm is people feel like they have to be ready to start. Like, and that's why it's always like, I'll wait till Monday, or I'm gonna start next week, or I'm gonna start next month, because it's always like that. I gotta be ready to start. And I think that barrier, and it's kind of imposter syndrome, right? It's like, I'm not the person that I need to be in order to start this journey. But that thought in itself kind of proves that you already are, right? Yeah. Because you already know you're not where you want to be, and that should be enough to know you need to start. But it for whatever reason, it hamstrings us, right? It holds us up. But I think if you're a guy who's listening to this and you heard that, right, and you felt that before, that was your sign. It doesn't have to be a perfect day. It doesn't have to be, the sun is shining, dogs are barking, the birds are chirping. It's the perfect Sunday to walk in, or it's the perfect day to start this new habit. It doesn't have to be that. Matter of fact, it's probably better to start it on the worst day, because then you have the opportunity for every other day to be better than that day, right? Like the trajectory is up from there, right? And so again, if guys who are listening and heard that and are trying to find their place to belong, or feeling disconnected from family or faith or community, or even from yourself, there isn't a perfect day or perfect way to start. There is just starting.
Oh, you're so right. We burden ourselves with a size of start that's unwarranted. I mean, just start, just show up. Hey, you only have to show up to church one time. I'll tell you a quick story about how I started flossing. Well, actually, I started flossing just by putting floss sticks by my toothpaste. That's all I did. And then finally, like Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart, they called out to me. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to be oppositional. I'm not going to do too much. 2 teeth on each row, only 2 days a week. That's all I'm going to do. Well, I just activated the law of inertia. Well, then you know what happened. I started adding some teeth, and then I started adding some days. And then, 3 months later, I'm a flosser.
Yep.
And in fact, in my blog a couple of weeks ago, I put out a $100,000 challenge to my readers. I said, try to prove me wrong. I said, pick a start, no matter how small you want. And if you're consistent with that start, I guarantee you're going to make great progress. For instance, you won't be able to keep to 2 teeth 2 times a week. By the time 6 weeks rolls around, you're going to be more teeth. If you do it every week, you will be more teeth and more days by the time you hit 6 weeks. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll give your favorite charity $1,000. Because
Yeah.
I'm never going to have to pay on that because everyone's going to progress. Everyone's going to
Right.
do more. And I even said, look, there's a consolation prize. If someone takes me up on it and they progress, I'm not going to penalize their charity. I'll give money to their charity too. I mean, that would be. But I'm so confident I'm going to win. I'm never going to have to give any money because I lost the challenge. So don't burden yourself. Just like you said, with some enormous start, do it. Go walk 20 minutes a week. 2 days a week, 20 minutes a day, 2 days a week, rather. In 6 weeks, you're going to be walking 25 minutes, a half hour, 4 days a week. You won't be able to help yourself. I mean, how many times have you seen that in your personal training world?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a snowball effect, right? Like it just continues to grow and grow. And I think even as it's kind of habit formation, right? It was what you're talking about. You're kind of linking two things together to kind of build, because you're going to brush your teeth every day, right? So putting the flossers next to it is a signal that I'm brushing my teeth, I should floss. The thing that's interesting about it is, and like you said, after a couple weeks, you would have to actively force yourself not to floss with them next to you know what they're there for. You'd have to be like, no, it's not my day to floss. And, like you have to really try hard not to do it. So you're absolutely right. When you actually start small, right? Because if it was a big thing, right? Like if you started, you're like, every day I'm going to floss every tooth for 5 minutes. By day 2, it just, for whatever reason, not any doing of your own, it would just happen naturally that's hard to keep up. But if you start small, it's easier to build on.
Right. Do you tell all of your people on January 1st, well, let's work out 30 days in a row? You haven't been working out, but January 1st, let's work out 30 days in a row.
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah.
No one does that. Or if they do it, then in February, they work out 0.
Yeah, exactly. It's always interesting to see how that kind of works. Is like, that happens with a lot of things. And I'm obviously using fitness as the example, but it happens at a lot of things in life. Like as a dad, I'm just going to start showing up, right? I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to be at everything. I'm going to be at every game. I'm going to be at every recital. And yeah, that in theory, it sounds good and you're going to try your best to do it. But the first time you miss, you're going to feel like the world ended. And then the next time you miss, you're like, oh, well, I guess I can't do it all. And then it just kind of naturally starts falling off. The same thing happens in fitness. It's like, I'm going to work out every day. And then you miss Saturday. And you feel terrible about yourself and you feel embarrassed, so you don't work out on Sunday. And now you got 2 days. And then before you know it, something happens on Wednesday where you can, it's beyond your control. And now your whole thing is over. So you're like, oh, well, I didn't work out 30 days straight. I'll start next month.
Yep. You definitely see that in the fitness world. But you're right, it extends to every habit we have as fathers. I should be talking more about faith because that's the faith component where I'm at. And, I love what you said. It's thinking bigger than yourself. So having faith is a belief in something bigger than yourself. Don't overcomplicate it. Accept God's love. It will transform you into a lover of all. The place that can foster and nurture your faith development is a church.
Mm-hmm.
I assure you, there's a place for everyone, and everyone needs a place. And Rod, you may have to go to a church with exclusively white members to find your place.
Right.
I don't think you, my experience would tell you don't. But it may be in some place that you don't even expect.
Yeah.
And then that's the place where you can find some belonging. You can find other men that you can travel this world through this world with, rather. And that common belief and value system is just so incredibly supportive. And it's supporting you in the way that you want to go, in the direction you want to travel. And so it's just a big encouragement for people. Church can be a beautiful place. Go seize the benefit of community worship.
Yeah, I agree. It's necessary to be surrounded too. I know that we're in 2026. You can watch a sermon on the internet or YouTube or on Zoom. And there is some community with the chat, right? But it's not the same as walking through those doors and being surrounded by the energy that each person brings, by the energy that is in the room. And you can call it whatever you want. You can say it's the Holy Ghost, or you could just say it's the collective energy of the room, which is similar. But I
Yeah.
won't get into the semantics of it, right? Um, but I think it's necessary. It may not work all the time, right? Like we're in the season where my daughters play softball, so they have tournaments every weekend. So every Sunday it's hard for us. But when we can, right? At least once a month, we are in the room where we need to be, getting filled up. And then outside of that, we touch base in services when we can, or we'll listen to it, or we'll watch it together. But being a part of the room, my daughter's a big Hamilton fan, and one of the songs there is "In the Room Where It Happens." Sometimes you need to be in the room where it happens, because that is where it becomes infectious, and that's where you can kind of build on those habits and be reaffirmed, and you have a handshake and have a conversation and share a thought, or have some wisdom imparted on you. I think that's really, really important because, as we talked about earlier, most of us are traveling through life with one or none friends. And so having a space where we can find community and find belonging is extremely important.
Oh, you're so right. And presence, you're correct. It's just like your kids. You can FaceTime your kids if you want and say, hey, I saw my kids, I would FaceTime them, or you could be in the room with them and hugging them. And so you're right. Church occurs as much as when I walk in that door and I'm slapping the back and hugging the people, and before and after church, and the conversation about this guy's job, or the conversation about something I'm struggling with maybe with my kids that I have. And so church is not just when the preacher is giving me the message or we're worshiping and singing the songs. There's so much more to it than that. So yeah, you got to be present. I say you have to be present to win. And now you find me as the wandering worshiper. It's not only the title of the book, it really is who I am. No matter where I am in the world, I'm at church. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Lima, Peru. The Unity Church of Lima, Peru. I was there. This weekend, I'll be at St. Teresa of Avila on Armitage Avenue in Lincoln Park when I'm going to visit or at Every Nation Church. I'll be at one of the two in
That's
Chicago.
awesome. That's awesome.
I just like being with that community of believers.
It's interesting how that works, right? Because you're going to different churches and different places, but you're still being fed, like I think sometimes too, we get into this where we have our church home and we feel like we're cheating on our church home if we go somewhere else, but at the end of the day, we're serving the same God. We're serving the same purpose. We're nurturing the same part of ourselves. And I think we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our families that, like you said, when you're traveling, still and making it a point to be involved, to be in community.
Yeah. Many people say, travel, good. I don't have to go to church this Sunday. I can sleep in. Well, I mean, so what do you, it's an example of a faith practice. And then plus, when you're on vacation with your kids, how are you wonderfully modeling?
Right.
And you say, wait, hey, we're on vacation, I know, but we're going to take some time out to go to church. And so, I did that as a kid. Now, look, it's kind of funny. I am an exceptional person. I really am. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm exceptional. So that when the man goes to church in the house, it's like 93% that the family goes. It's only 7%. Well, I happen to be in the 7%. I'm exceptional in all the wrong ways. But I make no mistake about it. I still feel like I'm modeling behavior, and they notice. They notice that I go.
Yeah.
And everybody notices that I go, and everybody knows this is important to me, and everybody has seen the impact it's had on me.
Yeah.
And so
they're probably feeling the benefits of you being a better version of you. Whether they go or not,
so, yeah.
They're receiving you at a different level. When you're able to go and nurture that part of you, you bring that home and share it with them. either way, right? Whether you get to share it with them
Yes.
in community together or you bring it home. It's funny. Um, the other day for work, we had like a potluck. Not a potluck. They ordered food. Some people brought stuff and it was like catered, but there's some people brought stuff. And there's a lady at my job that makes really good carrot cake. And my kids obviously weren't there, but I was able to bring that carrot cake home and share it with them. And it's kind of a similar idea. It's like they may not
Yeah.
be in there with you, but you're able to take some of that and bring it home to them.
Yeah, I got to thank you very much for reminding me of that, because sometimes, it is discouraging. Like, what am I doing wrong? And that I've not influenced them. I'm asking people all over the world that can hear this podcast to give church a try, and wait, your own children, aren't. But you're right. Maybe number one, it may just be not yet, right? And number two is that is not a reason for you not to go. And number three, and most importantly, what you just emphasized is that because of that and the impact it has on your faith, the impact it has on you, you are bringing something to them. So thank you very much for reminding me of that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. For the guy that's listening to the podcast, he's made it to this point. What is one thing that you want to make sure that they understand, or maybe one thing that you think they need to hear?
Okay. As men and as fathers, I think one of the things is to shut out the noise. Is that we're exposed to so much noise through media and through other people exerting influence on us. I would say trust yourself that the overwhelming majority of us have good values, have good intentions, and we're too often distracted by external noise. And so be true to yourself, trust yourself, and you'll be a great father. You'll know what to do.
I like that. That's really, really important, because again, I talked about imposter syndrome a little bit earlier, but I think a lot of us get in our own way because we think we have to be a certain thing or we have to be a certain way, and maybe we don't feel like we live up to that just yet. And so we maybe shy away from our responsibility or we shy away from our duty. But the reality is that you were uniquely selected to be the parent of that child, right? Like you are. Like when God allowed you to have that child, he knew who you were, right? He knew who you were going to become, at what stage you were going to become it. And you are exactly the right person for the job. That doesn't mean that you don't have work to do. That doesn't mean that you stop doing what you need to do to become a better version of yourself. But in this moment right now, you're exactly who you're supposed to be. So be that fully.
Oh, I like that. Very good. Very good. And make church a part of it.
Yeah.
There's a great benefit out there. Go seize it.
At the very least, go try it. Just give it the old college try, right? Let's see what happens. Because I think there's more than enough evidence out there, right? There's more than enough examples. If you listen to this podcast, you've heard more than enough people talk about how much of a change is made in their life. But seeing is believing, right? And in this instance, right? Because we talk about faith, it's obviously the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. But in this instance, I think sometimes we have to see it to believe it, right? Like we have to be in the room to feel it. We have to see how it changes things for us, even if it just changes our perspective or our thought process. But I encourage everyone to take advantage of the opportunity that's there, because it's free. It's free. You can go. Like no one's charging you. Like just show up. No one's gonna
happy to see you.
And if it doesn't work out and you leave, no one's gonna come and chase you down either. Like no one's gonna no one's gonna judge you. Come to the Creator when you come to the Creator. Like no one's going to bully you into it.
No.
So,
and you do have to sometimes kiss a number of toads before you find your prince.
For sure.
And that's the other thing I would say. Don't get discouraged. Hey, I went to a few and I didn't like them. They were just like I thought and I didn't like them. Hey, give some more try.
Yeah.
Give some more try.
All right, man. Well, Richard, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us, to talk with us, to share the book. If guys are wanting to, reach out to you, and maybe say thank you as I just did, or maybe to give you some kind of virtual high five, how would they do that? If they're looking to grab a copy of The Wandering Worshiper, where would they go to do that? But what is the best way for guys to get in touch with you?
So maybe the best way is thewanderingworshiper.com. That
Okay.
website is actually linked to richardgriccardi.com, same
Okay.
website. And it's got my blog on there. It's got a way to contact me. And if someone is interested in the book, obviously a way for you to purchase the book. It's on Audible, it's on Kindle, it's on Amazon. I can get on the website also. I'll make this offer. If there's someone curious about church but doesn't know what to do, I'm willing to talk to one person at a time. So if someone said, listen to this podcast and said, look, I got to tell you about my church experience and I need some help reapproaching it, I'll make the time to talk to you about it.
That's awesome. That's I really appreciate that, right? Because that's going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And so, fellas, I would encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Reach out to Richard. Make sure you connect. Like I said, even if it's just to say thank you or to send him kind of a virtual high five, please do so. Richard, I want to thank you again. This has been a really good episode. I'm taking away from it, right? Like I always say that at the end of the podcast, because that's what selfishly, right? I'm always trying to gain something from these conversations, because I too am curious. And so I appreciate you, and I want to give you a virtual high five and a handshake and say thank you for your time and for your wisdom.
Well, you are most welcome. And thank you. I learned some stuff from you, obviously, today. I really applaud you for assembling this podcast and doing it. I think it has and will continue to do wonderful work for our fathers.
All right. Thank you.